Hello everyone and welcome to our next session on conditional rendering. Conditional rendering in React. Conditional rendering in React works the same way conditions work in JavaScript. It allows you to create different user interfaces or UIs depending on whether certain conditions are met. Basic conditional rendering. In React, you can perform conditional rendering using JavaScript's conditional operators. Here's a basic example using a simple Boolean flag to show or hide a message. Using if statements. Another way to implement conditional rendering is by using if statements inside the render method. This approach can be useful when you have more complex conditions. Inline if with logical & operator. React also allows using the logical & operator for conditional rendering. This can be handy for rendering a component only when a certain condition is true. Conditional rendering with ternary operator. The ternary operator can be a concise way to conditionally render elements. It's particularly useful for inline conditions within JSX. Conditional rendering with switch statements. For more complex conditions, you can use switch statements to render different components or elements based on multiple conditions. Example: conditional rendering with list. Let's see an example where we conditionally render a list of items. This example demonstrates how to show different content based on the number of items in the list. To begin, let's set up our new React project using Create React App. Open your terminal and execute the following commands. This will generate a new directory named conditional-rendering containing all the necessary files and dependencies for our React application. Now, let's create two components, login and dashboard. The login component renders a sign-in message and a login button. It receives a function onLogin as a prop, which will be called when the login button is clicked. The dashboard component displays a welcome message and a logout button. Similar to the login component, it receives a function onLogout as a prop, which will be invoked when the logout button is clicked. These components will serve as the foundation for implementing conditional rendering based on the user's authentication state. The login component will be displayed when the user is not logged in, while the dashboard component will be rendered upon successful login. Now, let's implement conditional rendering in the app component. We'll use the useState hook to manage the authentication state. Based on this state, we'll conditionally render either the login or dashboard component. Inside the app.js file, we import the login and dashboard components along with the useState hook from React. We define the app component where we create a state variable isLoggedIn initialized to false. Two functions, handleLogin and handleLogout, are defined to update the isLoggedIn state accordingly. In the component's JSX, we use conditional rendering to display either the dashboard component, that is if isLoggedIn is true, or the login component, that is if isLoggedIn is false. The appropriate functions handleLogin or handleLogout are passed as props to the child components. Lastly, let's run our application. Execute npm start in the terminal to start the development server. Then navigate to http://localhost:3000 in your browser to see the conditional rendering in action. Depending on the authentication status, the user will either see the login screen or the dashboard. To conclude, in this module, we have explored various techniques for conditional rendering in React. Whether using ternary operators, if statements, logical && operators, or switch statements, React provides flexible and powerful tools to conditionally render elements and components based on dynamic conditions. By mastering these techniques, you can create more dynamic and responsive user interfaces. That's all for this session. Thank you.